Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name's Susanna. I'm a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the copyrighted grey sheet. I write them down and commit them to my sponsor. I eat nothing in between meals, no matter what. And I eat what I say I'm going to eat, no matter what. And abstinence and sobriety are the most important things to me today. And my abstinence date is the 15th of February, 2020. And it's great to be here this evening. I don't normally come to the Tuesday meeting because Tuesday is normally a very busy day for me. It's the only day off I get in the week, really. And so it's the day that I organise all my admin stuff and appointments and life stuff. So I'm usually pretty whacked by the time I get to Tuesday evening, but it's great to be here. And I am getting a little bit of balance in my life lately, so I'm not quite so tired. But what happened? What I used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. So, my first noticeable addiction really started when I was about 16, and it was alcohol, and I carried on drinking. I mean, I was always drank alcoholically, and I got sober when I was I did that for about almost 20 years. And then I got sober when I was in my early 30s. And I remember then my sponsor, got sober through a 12-step program of recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember my sponsor saying, we're having a discussion when I was 9 months sober about giving up smoking. And I wanted to give up smoking, and I duly did. And she said, well, beware, because, the addiction is addiction, and it will manifest itself in other ways if you're not careful. And, I thought, well, that's interesting, and I kicked the cigarettes, stayed sober, kicked the caffeine. It really wasn't, I was sober for about 10 years or so before the food started creeping in, I would say. I was quite overweight when I got sober. So I was doing a lot of comfort eating and high carb, highly refined carbohydrates eating when I had hangovers, particularly after a heavy night in the bar. And obviously the alcohol itself is calorific. And when I was in rehab, they fed us 3 huge meals a day. I put on a lot of weight in rehab. And about when I was about a year sober, I decided to lose it all, because I was probably heavier than I was when I started GreySheet, I would say, just about. So for about a year, I joined a diet program, and do you know what? It was very odd. I ate 3 measured meals a day. There was a point system based on the carbohydrate and calorie count of the food. I had 3 meals a day with nothing in between, and I lost all the weight, and I felt fantastic. And there was really very little room for sort of non-abstinent food, actually, to stay within the points system. And I was very successful at it. And I got to my goal weight and all that kind of stuff. And then I kept that weight off for about 4 or 5 or 6 years, actually. No, longer than that, a good 10 years. But mainly through developing, keeping an eye on my food, but also through exercise bulimia. So I started doing a lot of triathlon, a lot of trekking, a lot of extreme altitude mountaineering, a lot of competitive sports. And that was great. That kept me going. And once I got married in 2009, that's when things really started to kick off with the food. I developed some musculoskeletal problems. I could see that I was starting to binge eat a lot. At the time, I was working as a course manager, so there was always a course meal, and I was running about 1 course a week. So every week, I would take the course to the same place, which I loved, which was one of these, you pay for the plate and you can just go up time and time again. And I always insisted that we went there. So in about 2011, I thought I can see where this is going. And I managed to persuade the surgeon, even though I didn't meet the criteria, I managed to persuade the surgeon to give me a gastric band, because I told him, look, this is the direction of travel. I'm binge eating, I'm gaining weight, I feel terrible, blah, blah. So I had that fitted in 2011. And it kind of had a sort of effect. Thanks, Nancy. It sort of had, no, it didn't really work, and before long I was back to my old tricks, eating round the band. And, I just felt I was working really hard. I was really stressed. I was commuting long hours at either end of the week. And I would, on my commutes, which, I used to commute, it was about a 4-hour drive each way. I stopped at every single petrol station on the way, and I had a standard set of things that I would buy. My eating was quite good during the week, but I always was terrified. I was always trying to eat food in such a way that I wouldn't get hungry between meals. So I had to eat something at breakfast time, which would see me through to lunch without getting hungry, because I knew that when I got hungry, I made bad choices and bad decisions. But despite all that, I just continued to think, oh, well, I'll just have a bit of this or a bit of that, go to the cafe, have sugary stuff that we don't eat. And I was always making excuses for myself, and then, feeling terrible because I had broken my sort of promise to myself that I wouldn't do this sort of thing anymore. But I love sitting around in coffee bars, eating the stuff they have behind the counter. But then I felt terrible about it. And interestingly, I kind of started doing a lot of yin yoga, because I started having musculoskeletal problems again because my weight was going up. And it was through that and then I was doing creative recovery with Julia Cameron's side of things. And I was doing a lot of work on that. And I realized that my head was really in a mess. Now, it's interesting because when I had shortly after I had my gastric band fitted, I joined another 12-step food addiction recovery group. And I remember one meeting, somebody came in effing and blinding about GreySheet and saying what a load of rubbish it was, because they had eaten a small piece of non-abstinent fruit between meals that they hadn't committed. And they had been given their marching orders to go back to day one without passing go. And they were saying how rubbish GreySheet was, and they were going to come back to this other fellowship that I was sitting in at the time. And, in 2020, when I realized that my head was still a mess and I was miserable and stressed and overwhelmed and overworked, GreySheet came into my head. And I don't know where that came from really, but it just came into my head that I needed to contact GreySheet. So I started making, this was just before the pandemic lockdown really started. So I started making some initial inquiries. I listened to a bit of YouTube, and I managed to find something on Skype in Australia. And I was kind of planning to go there, and then everything just went Zoom. I started coming to meetings on Zoom, and I got my first meeting. I found a sponsor who offered to sponsor me. And, I just remember the evening she took me through my first abstinent meal. She said, open your fridge, and what have you got in there? Have you got, protein? Have you got vegetables? And I managed to fix this abstinent meal then and there from what I had in my kitchen. And I ate it, and it was huge. I just seem to remember being completely overwhelmed by the volume of food. I thought, I can't possibly eat all this. And for months later, I was convinced that she had given me the wrong weights, actually. But I couldn't quite remember what she told me to eat. But anyway, I'd eaten what she... And she just, I remember this when I got sober I remember my sponsor saying, just do as you're told, complete surrender, acceptance and obedience. Just do as you're told and you'll be fine. And that's what I did in GreySheet. I just did as I was damn well told. Sorry to swear, but, I just did what I was told, and I didn't question it really. I just, I wasn't in a position to question anything. I just did as I was told, and it's been okay. And I think I've been very lucky to do most of my abstinence in lockdown, because I've been able to just focus on being in the home and being at home and fixing my meals at home. And I always worried slightly that, you know, life was good. I was at home. I could get to the shops. I could buy what I needed, blah, blah. And I used to worry about what happens when something bad really goes wrong. You know, I mean, I had a kind of litter mate in Grey Sheet, who had got sober 2 days before, thanks Nancy, 2 days before her mum died. And I thought, my God, you know, how does one manage? This year, my dad's died. I got divorced. I sold the family home. I'm in the process of selling another family home. I've had my gastric band removed, so I've had surgery. I've met somebody, I've started another relationship, a really serious relationship. I've traveled all over. I've traveled overseas, and I've traveled in this country, and I've managed to maintain my abstinence. And for me, the key about maintaining my abstinence is really planning in advance. So I'm a big planner, and I always have been a big planner. And my new boyfriend's a big planner as well. So we plan everything. You should see how he organizes his plumbing fixtures. I mean, it's just great. So we plan. So I have to plan. So, you know, we're going to a concert tomorrow night. And since yesterday, I've been sitting thinking about, right, what's the timings and what I'm going to eat and what I need to write down and what I need to commit tonight for tomorrow, and then fix it. And, you know, I love getting, you know, having time in the afternoon to just really fix all my food. I find it tremendously reassuring. And with all the turmoil, the emotional turmoil of this year, Grey Sheet has been the one constant in my life, in my day. You know, I have 3 meals a day, and those 3 meals a day are kind of my spiritual respite, you know, when I'm just focused on fixing my food. And then when I've done it and it's ready to go, I have a little kind of fly net that I put over it so that flies and things don't get out. I just leave it out on the kitchen table, and that's my lunch, or that's my, you know, my evening meal. And you know, I've found that that's actually really helped me deal with all the turmoil of the things that are going on in my life. And you know, I thought that I would just end up going straight back to the garage and picking up whatever it was that I found comfortable when I was doing that sort of thing. But it's been completely the opposite. You know, life gets difficult. And it pushes me closer to Grey Sheet. You know, next year, so that's what's happened this year. Next year, I'm hoping Omicron forgiving. Let's see what happens with that. But, you know, I'm going to be doing much more traveling. I'm training to do ocean going yachting. I don't know how that's going to work, but my boyfriend said, oh, well, it's all right. You know, if you can't, if there's no Wi-Fi access, we'll just buy a sat phone and you can phone your food into your sponsor on the satellite phone. But, you know, it's go to any lengths. You know, I've got to go to any lengths. So I can see myself setting off with, you know, a baggage allowance just full of non-perishable food and tins of pineapple and what have you, you know, the things that one carries around for emergencies. And we'll see what happens. But at the moment, I'm so optimistic about Grey Sheet. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I feel like I'm the best person that I've ever been, really, you know, sober, abstinent, retired, relaxed, and at the body shape that I'm supposed to be. And I remember hearing somebody saying, you know, if you eat what you're supposed to eat, you'll be the weight and shape that you're supposed to be. And actually, this is the weight and shape that I always was when I was in my teens and early 20s. I mean, I got skinny shamed quite a lot at school, and I've always had a big appetite, and that's reflected in my allowances on this program, which is just insane. And I'm rather hoping that perhaps tomorrow I can cut back on a bit. Thank you, Nancy. I see that. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. As I say, I feel the best that I've ever felt. And this program just really, really, really works. And I don't want to, I don't ever want to do anything else. I don't want to eat in any other way. I eat out a lot, and I just say to people, well, I have an eating disorder and I have to eat in a certain, I have to be very careful with what I eat. And people shut up. They don't come back to you on that one. When I've said, oh, I'm an alcoholic, that's why I don't drink, sometimes people ask a few more questions. But if I say I've got an eating disorder and I have to be careful what I eat, people just shut right up. It's so stigmatized. It's so stigmatized. So it really shuts people up. It's great. And they look at me and think, how can somebody so healthy looking have an eating disorder? But I do. I'm obsessive. And, I'm an addict through and through. If you cut me in half, I'm an addict. And, I just need to be careful that the addiction doesn't manifest itself in another way. But I'll always be addicted to something. It's just a damage limitation exercise. And that's absolutely fine. I like being an addict. It makes me a more interesting person. And I like being in Grey Sheet because it makes me a better person than I ever could have been off this program. Thank you very much.